Hi everybody, I wanted to do a follow-up to the workshop that we had this past weekend, November 4th. It was the native seed collection that we did on the Lorain County Community College campus. We spent most of our time in the prairie, and then we went through the Flora Trail and into the Meadow Preserve. Now there's a couple spaces that we did not get to visit that I was hoping that we could, so I could show you a wide variety of seed collecting methods depending on the life cycle of the plant. We did collect dried wildflower seed, including some grasses, and I think we collected just the one fruit from the Tupelo tree. So I'm going to go over a couple of those things. A lot of it will sound familiar based on the discussion that we had at the time. Camera angle might be a little bit funny, but I am not a pro at this. So for the scarlet hawthorn, its fruit is much more like an apple or maybe even a pear, so it's substantial fruit. All we're trying to do is get past that skin and open it up, and you'll probably start seeing seeds right away. I'm just going to take my nails and scoop the seeds out. So we take all the fruit away, and I'm going to put this in an item that I can strain the seeds with. Now these are pretty clean, and I will wash them. Now for this nanny berry, it has one seed in it. It's a disc-like seed, but the fruit is really kind of pasty, so this is one of the more time-consuming pieces. You would just kind of scrape away all this pulp. Some people say you can even put it into a blender on a soft setting. I have not tried that, but they say that the seed coat is strong enough for that, so you can try that if you are so inclined. Otherwise, I typically shave off the fruit with my nail or a butter knife, and I would put it into a sieve, something like this. I would drop my seed in there, run it under soft water, and just go back and forth along the bottom until it picks up all that fruit. And then at that point, I would just go ahead and stratify it. Some methods that you can also do is to perhaps lay all of your fruit out in a sieve, smush the fruit around, and extract the seeds from there. Now I'm just going to review some of the seeds that we collected together and how we might clean them up. Sometimes I don't clean my seeds at all, and so I kind of choose my battles. I will leave more material on a very dry and spacey plant than I will with something that is dense with a lot of folds. And this takes me back to what I had said before, which is that you gotta assume that the seeds are still wet. That way we don't seal them in plastic. I might harvest them in plastic, or they may be given to me like this penstemon. They were given to me like this. I will either transfer them to one of my organza bags, or I will leave it in this plastic bag but with slightly open, or at least with some air in there, because seeds do like some oxygen exchange, so that is why paper is such a good option. Say we want to extract the seeds. Penstemon's pretty easy. It doesn't take too long, but just flipping it upside down doesn't work a whole lot. It can, but I can hear the seeds rattling in there, and they're not coming out because there's it's like they got pursed lips at the top. So in this example, a lot of times what I'll do is shortly after harvesting them, I'll put them in my organza bag, and I'll just kind of go like this, and I'll crush them. I'll even just do that now as an example. And all of those little seeds in the penstemon fall to the bottom. You can massage the seed head to make sure you're getting everything out. But you can see at the bottom here, I do have some of the debris, but mostly what I have is a nice pile of seeds. And even with my organza bag, if I want to, I can just kind of massage the bottom of this bag, and it brings the big pieces up, and I can either discard them or I can relocate the accumulation of seeds down at the bottom. An alternative, if you've got the room, the space, the time, the interest, you can put your seeds in a pan like this. This is just a regular old casserole dish. If I had a bread pan, I would use that even more because the sides are more at an angle, which allows the next step. So I've taken the seeds out just by crushing the seed heads. You can use your fingers, you can press on the pan. It's gonna create a little bit of a mess, and maybe I don't want to keep that mess. So some of the reasons why is similar to the fruit in that, well, the more organic material you have, the more likely you are to create some mold in a certain setting. So I have some big pieces in here. We'll just remove those by hand first. Some of these heavier pieces. And this might be good enough for you at this point. Or you can try something I'm not particularly good at, but I still try sometimes. Take all of your seeds to one corner, kind of loosely packed in that corner, and give a light blow over it. Running my finger over them, right over the surface. I might just grab that, and then I'm ready to store my seed. And even just in that one little piece of beard tongue, that was the foxglove beard tongue, I have many, many seeds. Now, one downfall of the organza bags is that some seeds are so small, like dust, like mountain mint, it'll just go through the bag. Or if they're very needle-like, like certain goldenrod species or asters, they may also just pierce through the bag and exit. So it's not a cure-all bag. I use it a lot, especially if there are seeds that need to be massaged out of the seed head, because I can grab the seed head around the bag and go like this. Coreopsis is a big example for that. This is the broad-leaved mountain mint, also referred to as the clustered mountain mint. Take the flower seeds and set them all upside down in this bag. And what has happened is after 2 or 3 weeks, most of the seeds have fallen to the bottom and all of the cleanup work is done for me. But just in case, while you're with me today, I'm gonna go ahead and pull these out and check. Now, mountain mint seeds sit right on top of the flower. So you don't have to go in there and pull everything apart and make a big mess. A lot of times all you do is you'll harvest it when it's dry and you'll just kind of knock it around like this. And I'm not getting very much seed. I don't see very much seed. Maybe a couple here and there that I might just knock off. And just look how pretty this is, even just like this. It's a beautiful, this is something I would and do keep in my house all year long. I'm getting some seeds, not a whole lot. I'm getting some. I'm going to assume that the rest of them are in the bottom of the bag like I speculated, like I hoped. Still hoping. Shake it around, maybe drop the seeds down to the bottom. Remove the larger material. Because the seeds are so fine, you probably have a chance of using a sieve and maybe reducing some of that dried plant material. If you choose, it would at least remove the pieces of the seed head that are still together, if not the little capsules that the seeds had released from. And I can see this brown dust at the bottom of all of this, and those are actually my seeds. I would not store these in my organza bag. For this one, I would use paper. Now this is Virgin's Bower. It's a native clematis. You'll see these tails attached to each seed. Birds love this fluff because it's excellent to make your nest nice and comfy and warm. Some people will encourage you to perhaps grab a cluster of the seed and maybe cut away the tail. You can, but this tail on the Virgin's Bower and similar tails like our parachuting seeds, such as our goldenrod seeds, that material doesn't really generate a lot of problems. So typically I don't worry too much about the fluff unless it's going to be a storage issue or it's going to get in my nose or my ears or my eyes. So I am going to demonstrate how I might clean some goldenrod just to keep it from being so fluffy that it's hard to manage when it comes time to sewing. This is gray goldenrod, one of my very favorites. So I would just do a little bit at a time. I'm going to grab my seed. You can see that there's a lot of fluff. If I were to blow this seed, like in the previous method, the whole thing you can guarantee will just come floating out. The plumes on these seeds are rather small, so I'm not expecting to get a whole lot of cleanup done, but at least the sepals that held the plant or the flowers there, I can at least clean those away because those are a little bit more conducive to bacterial issues than the plumes themselves. So already just by shaking it, you can see I'm getting some plumes in there, but lots of seeds are pouring out, and I haven't even applied pressure yet. So we'll let everything that's already loose get out, shake, shake, shake. And then we can go in there and we can just take our finger and rub the bottom. These are very small seeds, so once again, I would store it in paper. Okay, I let my hawthorn seeds dry out just a little bit, just to make sure there wasn't any remaining bacteria or enzymes or anything that could break the seed down. There was no insects or anything I had to worry about, so they're nice and easy to move around. That's another benefit to having them dry. They're easier to manage and move from one location to the other. I'm gonna go ahead and move right into stratification now, what we do with these seeds when we're ready to get the pre-treatment started. Before we sow them in the ground. So winter stratification or cold moist stratification is the process of breaking down a seed's inhibitors using the forces of freeze-thaw cycles as well as constant moisture. Cold moist stratification replicates what's naturally done outdoors but in a controlled environment. Lots of benefits to that, including avoidance of pest pressure. So out in the wild, your seeds could be preyed upon by hungry wildlife. It can be crowded out if we sow it directly into the ground. And here I've only got, I would guess, maybe 22 hawthorn seeds. So I don't really want to just throw these outside because I really want to be able to keep track of them and not lose them. Alternatively, you can do kind of a combination of the two by winter sowing. Winter sowing is a wonderful option. It's right in the middle of letting nature do it the way nature does and having that control of the stratification process. We're going to be having a winter sowing workshop January 6th. This is going to be with our Wild Ones group. Again, if you are interested in learning more about Wild Ones, please reach out. So the first part of this process is I'm going to take my little baggie, which I like my half-size sandwich baggies, and I'm going to label it. And I have entered the stratification process on November 9th, 23. I'm going to let these seeds stratify for 90 days. So I will add the date that we'll be taking them out of the fridge. And this is important because you don't want them to stay there in too long, and you want to make sure that they stay there for enough time. This is going to be my stratification substrate. There's a couple different methods that you can do, but this is one that I like. This is a tried and true method for me. I'm going to take a couple handfuls of this sand. This is just play sand, which I think was like $4 a bag or something. Traditionally, I use what's called vermiculite. Vermiculite is mica that has been mined and poofed up in high heat and has a 300 times a 300% capacity of its own weight to hold water. So that's what makes it so useful, is that it doesn't easily dry out. Sand is the actual opposite. Sand does not have a great water holding capacity, but in a closed paper bag or plastic bag, it can hold that moisture in. It's not evaporating. We've only put enough water in there to create a moist environment and not a wet one. So I have put some sand in here, enough where I know I could fit all my seeds in there with even cover. I'll take my water and start with just a little. And I can tell already that I put too much water in there. So at that point, what I would do is I would grab my bag, send it all to one corner, take my fist around it, and lead the water out. Squeeze, 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 until there's no more drips. Shouldn't have drips. That's how you know if you've got the right water level. What I like to do is I'll close the bag with air in it and just toss it around. And I'll do this again once my seeds are in there to make sure that everything is as homogenized as we can make it. This method's really good if you are working with a lot of seed. So perhaps that's one of the reasons why it is my go-to method, whether I'm using the sand or I'm using my vermiculite. What you want is a sterile medium. You don't want anything that has bacteria in it, so nothing fertile. So this is nice and evenly damp. It's just about perfect. I'll open my bag and deposit my seeds inside. I'll crack the bag a little bit, push most of the air out, maybe not all necessarily, but most of the air out, and reseal the bag. At this point, it's ready to be stored. You want to store it in your refrigerator and not your freezer, simply because, once again, we are assuming that the seeds are wet, and in this case, we know that they're wet because we added moisture. So we really don't want the seeds to start absorbing water and then freeze to burst their seed coats. That doesn't do any good. It could even harm the embryo that is inside of the seed. So this one's ready to go. It's going to sit in my refrigerator for 90 days. I might check on it every once in a while to make sure that it's not dried out. Another thing that I'm looking for is to make sure that my seeds have not begun to grow roots. If they do start to grow roots, it's time to plant them, and you'll just have to do the best that you can to facilitate their needs until they are ready to be transplanted or moved up to the next step in the process. Another method that you can do to stratify your seeds is the paper towel method. You can use paper towel, you can use a coffee filter, but what we're looking for is a smooth surface that we can place into a bag, which I like my little snack bag here. If you're only doing a few, you might like this method. So the reason that we chose a smooth surface is because if those seeds germinate, they're going to have root hairs that are very, very tender and could possibly grow into the napkin. So the smoother the surface, the more likely it is that we're going to be able to extract those seeds without damaging the root hairs. So we have our napkin in the bag, and we're just going to do a couple spritz of water to dampen the bag. Again, we don't want to have enough water in there to create drifts. So I will sometimes even just double check by turning the bag upside down and giving it a shake. So this is just about perfect. I can see that it is damp on both sides of the napkin. Another benefit of this method is being able to see the moisture level, see the seeds inside. I am going to demonstrate with my broadleaf mountain mint seeds. I'm going to put my bag in there and just start to sprinkle the seeds around. I'm going to press down, let the air out, seal the bag, label the bag. When I put this in the refrigerator, I'm likely going to set it plastic side down with the paper up, and that's because plants plant seeds experience what's called gravitropism. They are able to sense gravity. So if you think of a water bottle, for example, my spray bottle here, you can see that there's air at the top of the bottle. If I turn it over to its side, the air channels to its side, still facing up. And seeds have that same ability to be able to sense their orientation so they know which way to grow. The reason that we store our plastic down is because if the roots that may develop start to grow down, we can see them on the bag and we can remove them from the paper towel much more easily than if the napkin was below them and they grew the roots into the napkin. So this is nice and moist. It's ready to go in the refrigerator. I'm going to turn it over and label the back of it so that when I peek at them throughout the weeks, I know what I'm looking at. I'm going to stratify them for 60 days. Go ahead and put that they are to be removed and planted January 9th. So this one's ready to go. I'll set it aside and I'll check on it maybe once a week to make sure that that paper towel is not drying. And if it is, I'll simply do another spritz. When it comes time to remove the seeds and sow them, I'm going to open this bag. And if these were large seeds, I could take the napkin out and bonk the seeds down. But because these are really small seeds and I don't want them to get lost after all that work and time, I'm just going to take my spray bottle, I'll spray the napkin, and the seeds will drop right into my prepared pot. There's a lot of different ways that you can do all of the same thing. The process is pretty similar no matter what plant you're collecting. You know that you collect the seed when it's ripe. You can or should clean the seed depending on if it's a fruit or if it's a pretty dried material. And you're going to want to store the seed and think about whether it's going to need a pre-treatment like the stratification process or winter sowing like we're going to go over together January 6th. I hope you can join us then. Or how you might just sow it. I typically begin sowing my seed for production in January. But I have a hoop house, so I have a little bit more control over that environment, but that is up to you and what resources that you have. I hope that you had fun with me when we were together, and I hope that this video has been helpful. We have a social coming up with Wild Ones on, I believe, December 16th. So if that's something that interests you, it's always a lot of fun, really great people together. And there's a little bit of a rumor that a birdie told me that we will be sharing seeds then too. So whatever you didn't get when we were together today, or perhaps I did not have on store for you, you might find together at our event. If you have collected seeds that you might have more than you need, or you collected simply out of curiosity and you're not sure what to do, go ahead and bring them. Let's talk about it. Let's share them. I hope that you keep in touch with me. I have a lot of fun keeping in touch with you guys and seeing how your native plant journey is going. You can follow me on my page, Archer of Arcadia. I hope to talk to you all soon.